Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Before I begin today, a big thank you to Armin for the virtual gift voucher. Thank you very much for the support, my friend. I really appreciate it. But on to today. Today we are taking a look at the beginning of the rise of the Necrons and the plan of the Silent King himself. Spoiler warning before we begin, the events we are discussing today are from the short story For Every End, a Beginning. And this is a free short story on the Warhammer community website, as part of the upcoming Pariah chapter of the Psychic Awakening. As always, I really recommend you read the story for yourself first, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. And if you're new to the community website, what are you waiting for? It's the best place to get all the news straight from Games Workshop themselves. There's a link to the story in the description as always. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, this particular story follows the Necron cryptech known as Illuminor Szeras. Now, Szeras is pretty infamous within Necron history, as while it may have been the star gods known as the Catan who provided the knowledge to transform the Necrons, it was Szeras who made it possible. And this story begins with Szeras within a chamber filled with ancient Necron technology, processing vast chunks of information in a blink of an eye with merely a portion of his mechanical mind. Yet it appears Szeras is more advanced than ever before, thanks to a mysterious patron. Yet thanks to the generous gifts of his new patron, melded of course with Szeras's own scientific brilliance, his thoughts move faster than ever before. The Illuminor flexes his freshly augmented android limbs and stretches himself to his full, newly towering height. Without the unique materials that his patron had provided, Szeras would have struggled to progress with his self-improvement so swiftly. The risk of compromising his physical shell might have been acceptable, but the danger to integrated elements of his personality engram would have been unconscionable. Szeras knows himself to be the most brilliant mind of his entire species. To needlessly endanger the most precious intellectual asset of the Necron race would of course be inexcusable. Yet now I am more. Greater. He thinks as information streaks through his newly refurbished metal architecture. With such augmentations, he will be more able than ever before to pursue his studies. Surely at last, comprehension of the very deepest secrets of life itself lies within Szeras's grasp. That work must wait, however. The Illuminor has forged a pact with his new patron and must uphold his end of the bargain. In truth, the patron's goals are not so dissimilar to Szeras's own. Furthering his allies' work must inevitably advance his also. Patron, ally. Now, I've seen some theories out there that perhaps this can't be referring to the Silent King, and it could be Fabius Bile. Now, while that would lead to some interesting stories, as we continue it becomes apparent there can only be one true patron. And the next passage highlights this. Szeras knows there are other terms of address for the being with whom he has struck his deal. Terms that he should perhaps use. Yet the Luminor's arrogance is rooted deep within the labyrinthine architecture of his personality engram. He cannot bring himself to do so. Humility is as alien a notion to Szeras as are biological imperatives, such as sleeping or eating, concepts for which he has neither use nor capacity. Yet Szeras also knows that he does not wish to delay his patron's plans, let alone risk failing him. Now let's break that down. Szeras knows there are other terms of address for the being with whom he has struck his deal, terms that he should perhaps use. If this is Fabius he was talking about, of course he would know of his other names, but he would never feel he should use any of them. The other life forms within the galaxy are lesser races to the Necrons, simple children, slaves. Of course, it could be a pharaoh of a dynasty, which is much more plausible. However, would Szeras really fear any of them? As I said at the start, he's a very important figure within the Necron history, and his arrogance is already well on show. Yet Szeras also knows that he does not wish to delay his patron's plans, let alone risk failing him. Szeras is one of the most pivotal individuals in all of the Necron history, as I said. He fears no simple pharaoh. It has to be the Silent King. I have a reputation to consider, the Illuminor tells himself, as though that is the only reason to honour his pact. Continuing his experiments, it's revealed that the chamber he is in is some form of huge observatory, enabling Szeras to view a vast portion of the galaxy. But not just this plane, also the plane of the warp and even the webway, sprawled out across the galaxy like a spider's web. So much information that it would burn out the mind of a normal cryptech. And we receive another hint to the scope of his patron's plans. Szeras steps back, perturbed, though whether at himself, at the Fort of Oricon, or indeed at the wider galactic situation, he cannot say. Nor does it matter. He has learned what he needed to from this latest glimpse. There is no alternative to his patron's schemes that Szeras can see. So no alternative to his patron's schemes, implying that whatever this patron has planned, it's going to affect the entire galaxy as a whole. There's only one Necron with that kind of power and scope, the Silent King. And why is he referred to as an ally, a patron? Well, 1. The command protocols of the Silent King have been removed. The Necron race can choose whether to serve him or not. While of course that choice may ultimately be fruitless, technically they have the free will to choose. And 2, more importantly, let's make no mistake about this, Szeras can crow to himself within the arrogance of his own mind that he's choosing to do this. But that earlier line betrays the truth. He does not wish to delay his patron's plans, let alone risk failing him. He knows, just as any other Necron, the power the Silent King wields. To defy him is to defy a god. The story moves on with Szeras moving through his chamber, passing by experimental subjects of orcs and other races, before passing through a dimensional portal, taking him to a stellar repository. So vast an entire tomb ship could dock within its curved walls. And at its heart lies something very interesting indeed. At its centre hangs the blazing orb of the confluence sphere, its brilliance filtered by the living metal cage that has grown to encompass it. Radiating out from the sphere, like the arms of some primitive, oceanic predator, are skeins of energy that interlace through multiple dimensions. Each enfolds smaller, yet still brightly blazing orbs of fire and the spheres that orbit around them. The energy skeins ripple and flow. They are growing like a living thing, forming an interlocking web that connects via non-Euclidean linkages and entraps dozens of lesser nodes. This is a map formed from mirroring particulates entangled on a quantum level with their equivalent megastructures in real space. Put simply, it is a massively miniaturized version of his patron's contra-empyreic matrix that changes and reacts in real time to reflect what is occurring across the entire region of space. As the matrix expands through its nodal pylons, so the map expands to show this. As worlds and systems fall under the shrouding influence of the matrix, so the captured data flows in glyph form across the repository's sensor displays. So the first mention of something that is going to become all-important to the future of the 40k universe. Contra-Empyreic Matrix. And it's a bit of a wordful. As Szeras turns away from the map, he's joined by the arrival of a group of several senior cryptechs. All lesser to him, of course. They bait him at first with mentions of him gracing them with a rare visit. And then, as Szeras expected, they complain that Szeras is moving too quickly, that forcing the rapid expansion of the Matrix is causing fluctuations in its results, and causing the lesser races to become aware of their actions. Szeras knew this was coming, and calls up the map. And this is where things get really interesting. Glyphs of the lesser races flicker on across the map, shining brightly across the galaxy. Those just within the borders of the growing Matrix, however, are flickering and dimmer. And glyphs at the heart of the Matrix are cold and grey. And we are giving the line, Empyreic activity dropping within predicted parameters. Szeras thinks, studying the information. Energy drain is vast, yet our capabilities remain infinitely higher. So this Matrix, it appears, is actively combating the effect of the warp, turning the lesser races into some form of psychic nulls. And judging by the disturbing occurrences we've seen in previous short stories, it appears to have some disturbing side effects, turning humans at least into mindless, comatose zombies. Not that the Necrons most likely give two hoots about that. So is the Silent King's plan to purge the warp from the galaxy? It certainly appears that way. And most importantly, he appears on the path to doing so. He's already forced all of the Necron dynasties to fall in line, as this passage shows. Other glyphs, vast numbers of them, team across the map. They swarm in the void and gather around major worlds. These glyphs bear the heraldic designs and coloration of numerous Necron dynasties. Some are minor, some very powerful, but all, Szeras knows, have accepted the mastery of his patron. So there we have it. The Silent King, with his Contra-Empyreic Matrix, is going to turn the galaxy into a galaxy of psychic nulls, stemming the tide of the overflowing warp. Now, whereabouts in the galaxy is this taking place? North of the Cicatrix Maledictum or south? We don't yet know. If it's north, there's really not much to prevent the Necrons from getting their way. If it's south, then things are about to get crazy. I'm not too sure Chaos are going to be too happy about his plans. And now this is something that hasn't really been discussed by anyone, but how has this not got to lead onto some Magnus the Red versus Necron storylines? I mean, there's no way Tzeentch is going to be happy about this, let alone any of the Chaos Gods. But Magnus in particular, man, he's not going to like this. I mean, it depends how far you wanted to take it, but you could almost even have Magnus fighting with Imperial forces against the Necron threat. Could we see a little hint of the goodness that Magnus used to be? The part of him that was lost so long ago re-emerge? Man, what a tease that would be. I know it's not likely to happen, but it's a possibility, at least minutely. But if that storyline isn't showcased, then that's a huge opportunity missed in my opinion. We've got to see some chaos against Necrons now. Or even the other psychic races such as the Eldar. This will have a huge impact on them too. Let's hope we have more Xenos versus Xenos storylines coming our way in the new edition, as there's some great possibilities there. From an Imperium perspective, how is the Emperor going to react to this new threat, seeing as he's virtually a warp god himself now? Man, this is going to be interesting. I can't wait. But as always guys, drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love to read them. A huge thank you to all my subscribers. Your support really means a lot to me, it truly does. And if you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.